Yes.
There you go. Got it. Okay. Right.
All right.
So I do two things. So I think the bit that you're talking about is number one, which is where I make most of my income, is as an independent business strategy consultant. So typically that involves finding a CEO or a CXO of some sorts and they're typically in the financial services sector, these companies that I consult to. And that is because my background is mostly financial services. And I live just outside London, and that's where all the money is in financial services around London, right? So that kind of makes sense. So I have, depending on who you talk to, some people will say I have very deep domain experience in financial services. So people who aren't financial services experts will say I've got very deep domain expertise. And people who are in financial services will say I've got very broad financial services domain expertise. So I guess depending on how you look at it. So and it's quite literally what you described. I'm looking for a CEO or CXO who's got something on their mind. And it can be anything from I just come into this role and I need a strategy, or my board has asked me for a new strategy and I need a strategy, or our old strategy is not working and I need a new strategy. So it can be as broad as that, or it can be very specific. We've got this, we've got a certain number of issues and we need to know what to do about them. And I will then go in and work with various stakeholders in that organization, do my own independent research, and take them through a process of unpacking the issues, exploring them, putting it back together in a here are your options for how you could respond to it. And I used to avoid recommending which option I would pick, but they always ask, so I've just given up and I said, look, here are your options. If it was me, this is, well, I wouldn't usually say it like that. I usually pitch it as here's my main contender, but here are the other ways you might look at it. And
when I'm asked that question by my clients, they say, well, if you were making this decision, what would you do?
Yeah,
I would make this decision, and these are the things that would impact that decision and why. Yeah. In my circumstance, if they relate to yours, great. Here are the pros and cons.
Yeah, exactly.
So making sure that they understand in my particular situation, I'm not worried about this, I'm more worried about that. So therefore I'm making this decision. And then they go, oh, okay, so those are the factors you took into account. So then I put it on to them. Yes. Based on what I use as criteria to make the decision, explain those in your terms. And get them to think, oh, okay, you thought about this and you thought about that. Those are similar, but I would change this. Okay, so think about it from that standpoint.
Yeah, no, that's right. And I try and I always tell people I follow as evidence-based approach as I can. And I try, and if they really ask, I'll say, okay, what I'm going to do is at the end of this, I'm going to tell you a story. And if you imagine yourself in that story, you will know what you want to do because you'll have seen the story unfold. And if you can't imagine yourself in the story because you'll say that's not where I'm at, then then essentially I will have been unsuccessful in that. But I agree. It's very so it has to be evidence based. So I try not to say here's my opinion. Right? I try and say, look. Here's what I'm seeing. I'm just reflecting back to you what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing from your staff, what I'm hearing you say, what I'm seeing out in the market, and here's a story that weaves all of that together in a kind of sensible way. And if you can identify as the protagonist in that story, well, then you take the next step because you'll know it feels right. And yeah, that's the gist of it. Now, the nature of the work and what you have to do to solve it varies quite tremendously. So you have to be pretty flexible, and the response you get from the organization varies quite a lot as well. Some people are quite welcoming, other people are a bit standoffish, which makes life quite difficult. I've just come from a meeting now where you're saying to the CEO, look, there's 2 members of your staff I'm worried about, they're not engaging. I won't be able to give you as good a result if they don't engage. Can we talk about what we need to do to get them to engage, or what do we do?
Sorry, just on that one point, what do you do when you have someone that is a particular member is not engaging?
So first of all, I try to be as diplomatic as I can, right? I mean, I think it's my mentality is I've been paid by the CEO to give them an answer. Right? It'll be a better answer if you collaborate, for me, for the CEO, and for you. But I'm giving the CEO an answer either way. So let's rather go the better way. But you do sometimes have to go to the layer above and say, look, how do we approach this person? And sometimes they have to crack a few heads. And I'm usually fairly clear. I can't crack the heads. I've got no leverage.
Right.
So I have to play very diplomatically to get people to engage. I've got no leverage. I always count it as a loss when I've got to go to the level above and say, can you crack some heads? Because then I think you get compliance, but is it really engagement? Not really.
You question whether it's authentic.
Yeah. But at least the client then understands the issue, if you know what I mean. So you go back and here's my best answer, but you understand that this person hasn't been entirely cooperative, and that's a challenge. I think there's formally only been one situation where I've gone back to the CEO and said, okay, so here's my view, and when they responded positively to it, I said, but I'm just telling you now, you're going to have to get rid of that person, otherwise you won't be able to do this.
Yeah.
Because and I said it's not. I don't have it that it was a perfectly nice person actually, but I said this person is actually not up to. If you want to do this person is not up to the job. They're not going to be able to do their part, and it's too important. That's only. It's happened once, and I've hinted at it the second time. But that's not, I don't see that as my job, so I don't go looking for that sort of thing. But
what I've found is in the sports world, a lot of people throw out comments like, how do you make a player engage the way you are coaching? And my response is, it's not my job to make the player respond the way I'm coaching. This is the way I am coaching, and this is what I've been asked to do. If that player is not a good fit for my style of coaching, perhaps he should be playing on a different team.
Yeah.
And I've just been brave enough to say to someone, listen, you got talent, but the way I coach is this, and you don't seem to want to engage the way I coach. My recommendation is you give it some thought, either decide to engage my way or find a different team to play for.
Yeah.
That's it. And I've had people say, but they're one of our best players. Yes, but the synergy is being disrupted by the frustration and the friction that player brings. Yeah. If we remove that, it'll improve performance.
Yeah.
And it always, invariably, I wouldn't say always, I'm trying to avoid those words, invariably results in a jump in performance.
Yeah.
And from time to time, I've had a player come back a couple of weeks later and say,
thought about it.
I've seen what you've done. And what it typically comes down to is they've spoken to some of the other players and said, you're an idiot. You need to rethink.
Yeah, but I'm reasonably clear in my head, and I think most of my clients are reasonably clear. I'm there to help them figure out their strategy. right? I get you've got a business to run, you've got a whole bunch of other stuff to do, right? I'm not there to do it for you. I'm here as a consultant to advise you on what I think your strategic options are and what I would recommend as a way forward. And so I'll comment on other stuff, just because I've been around the block a couple of times. I'm happy to comment. If you've got a question, but that's not what I do. And I've also realized over the years, I've been now doing this in this capacity for 17 odd years. I kind of know where my strengths are. And I know what I enjoy as well. And I don't enjoy performance managing underperformers, if I'm being entirely honest. That's why the CEO is getting paid the big bucks, right? To deal with that. So I know what my bit is, and I try and as I say, I bring an evidence-based, no skin in the game, structured approach to strategic problem solving, and I will come and apply that to you. And I have a policy as well. You trust the process. If you go through the steps of the process, the answer will emerge.
Mm-hmm.
One way or another, and that's what I bring. I will help you get through that process. I will help you gather the right kind of evidence. I'll help you structure the story in the right kind of way so you come up with a narrative. And at the end of the day, you will either feel clarity in what you need to do next, or you will look at me and say, you didn't deliver. Touch wood, that's never happened. I've always, even I remember a particular case where they'd asked me to look at a specific strategic challenge they were having, and we spent quite a lot of time, went quite deep into it, and had lots of conversations. It was all going swimmingly well, and right at the end they said, so you think that's what we should do? And I said, I don't think you're going to do that. And so they said, okay, so why do you say that? And I said, well, you asked me to look at a particular problem. I'm coming to tell you, if you want to do this, this would be the best way for you to do it. But while I've been working that out, I've been observing other things in your organization, and I know that actually you've got bigger fish to fry somewhere else. And you now know that although this is what you would do to go after that opportunity, it's not the right opportunity for you. But and so they were like all embarrassed. And I said, no, but don't worry, but now you're clear.
Yeah.
You know exactly what you want to do and why. Whereas I think they've been talking about this for the last 3 years. How do we do this? I said, well, now you can stop talking about it. Right? Because you now know how you would do it, and you've looked at it and you said, it's not our number one priority. It's not worth it enough. It doesn't rank compared to the other priorities enough. So go and do it with confidence. They called me back 18 months later and said, we've now sorted out some of those other things. Can you come back and tell us if the position has changed? And I went back and spent a couple of weeks and said, there's some details that have changed, but it's substantially the same situation. And you've still got it. But it's right? You've got to come out saying, I'm not clear about what I want to do and why.
Yeah, you get the people that when they get to the end, they we like what you've said, but we're not comfortable making those changes. So we're going to make these versions of your changes, and then down the road they come to you and say, your recommendations didn't work.
Right. Yeah.
Well, you didn't implement what I suggested. You changed it in this, this, and this. And here's where the significance of those changes are. Yeah. And here's where I can point to where you didn't get rid of the person that was causing the problem. Yeah. So without removing that problem, you can't move forward. I haven't had that experience much, and I do get quite a lot of repeat business actually. So clients will call me back. I'm more likely when I go back. There's a little bit of embarrassment that we haven't quite done everything. We haven't done everything you said last time, and I usually say, look, if I'm being entirely honest, I think if you do 20% of what I recommend,
it feels like a win to me, because
Right.
I'm going to lay out a strategy. You're going to start down that road. Some things are going to work. Something you're going to adjust. You're going to pull back in bits. But without the 100% picture, you wouldn't have started the 20%. You did the 20%, and it's worked. Yeah, you could have had more, but probably the world's changed by now. So let's go.
I think what people start to do is they start to implement some of your recommendations, and they get excited about some of the changes that are coming, and they've implemented 20 or 30% of your changes, and they go, oh my gosh, this is really good. And then they put the other 70% aside, and they go gung-ho down this, and they keep going, and then they go, what happened?
Yeah.
Well, you forgot these fundamentals that will keep this going.
I mean, you do get situations where you can see. So you will say what you need to do is this, and this is why you need to do it. And then they will do something that looks similar to what you said, but is different. And you say, but that's not going to achieve those benefits. Classic. I wasn't involved in the original advice, but I was called into a client, and they'd spent 3 years implementing a system to solve the problem. And I just looked at it and said, well, you've de-scoped all of the solutions. So you spent 3 years replacing one system with another system that doesn't solve any of the problems you originally set out to solve. And they sort of looked at me slightly embarrassed and said, yeah, when you put it like that, you're absolutely right. You have to remember the why is almost more important than the what. As long as you keep the why in mind, you'll step off the track from time to time, but you'll basically keep going down the right path.
Yeah, you bring that up. I'm a big advocate for you must begin with why. Yeah. The Simon Sinek basis of if you understand the why, the what and the how can be moved around. So,
sorry,
Karen. So the university is 100 years old this year, and they are doing a open forum, and I use the word open very sparingly, but an open forum, there's 12 sessions this week and next week for anybody, faculty, administration, staff, to sit in and ask questions about the strategy for the next 50. And I want to go and be part of it, but I also understand that there's a lot of people that don't want to hear what I have to say. Yeah. Because they are so focused on we must increase recruitment, we're going to provide an excellent place for people to study and blah, 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 but they're not prepared to change their approach because they are so focused on we provide a great education and this is the environment. They forget to develop a reason or an understanding of why would someone come here and what would inspire them.
Yeah. And will that still be true in 10 years' time or 20 years' time?
I try and make sure that they understand, I've got two ladies who own a barbershop, but bit of a controversial woman in a men's industry. And they want to expand their barbershop. So they were throwing out ideas, and I said, why are you guys in business? And they said, well, I said, first of all, money is not a why, it's a result. Why are you in business? And I gave that to them just on 3 weeks ago. And I said to them, when you can articulate to me why you're in business, then we can move forward. Until then, nothing I throw out to you is going to really drive any change because everything you're doing is going to be focused on the wrong thing. And the analogy that I use is it's like in the US, we always turn to our Constitution. Here is our US Constitution. And I tell people, you should have a personal constitution. Your business should have a constitution. Why do we do what we do? And what are the guiding philosophies that guide us? So when faced with a difficult decision, I know how to make that decision because I know what my guiding philosophies are. And that's, I tell them, that's our why. How and what will always change.
The why needs to go further than the sort of origin story why as well, to why something is going to work, why something is going to be true in the future, why it's going to resonate. I did a job where I had to present back to their executive committee at the end, and so it was a fairly formal process. I had to submit my proposals about a week before and then go to them and present it. So I'd had time to review it. And I went through the presentation, and at the end, the CFO said, Chris, I've studied your proposals, I've looked at all of your analysis, and I can't find any fault. It's impeccable. Said the problem is I've been in this industry for 20 years, and you're wrong. So now what do we do? I said, that's brilliant. You are now thinking about your industry fresh. Now they didn't then continue that conversation, but it left him with food for thought, right? I've got to reconsider my notion of how this industry works to come to square it off with this analysis, which is giving me a different answer. And I think it's that kind of stuff. You can't, what's the saying? A brain or mind once stretched by a new idea can never return, right? He can never go back. He can never go back and say, I know how this works, right? He's always going to have that, except that there's this other version of how it works that I can't.
You can't unhear something.
You can't. Well, you can't unhear something if it sticks in your brain, right? Like an insight. Right. But once you see something, you can't unhear it. Yeah. Anyway, so the second part of what I do is I got frustrated by the fact that there was no tool set for doing what I do. So I was scrabbling around with little notes scribbled all over the place and trying to keep track of everything. So I built the tool set.
I'm going to walk them out while I listen.
Right. Okay. So I built the tool set ultimately as a software as a service, which I then sell to mainly other small consultants, but sometimes small businesses as well, as a tool set for thinking strategically.
Something that I've been looking for, especially in the education environment, where I want to be able to give the students something to work with. I created a template, a tool for doing a marketing plan that I've adapted to be for my students to do it as a personal marketing plan. Because if you can think about the concept as it relates to you personally, you can then adapt it to working on a business.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
And going through that process, I've created this tool, and I have students calling me now years down the road saying, I still use that template to plug in my updated information, because I talk about the cost of goods and all the rest. How much does it cost for you to live? So when you're going to apply for a new job, can you afford to take that job for what they're offering? What have you added value so that you can raise your asking? What are you bringing to market? What is your differentiation? So all of those kind of things. But that's in the strategy side, I haven't found a tool I really like to use
Yeah.
because it's got to be applicable in two areas. It's got to be applicable in the business environment, but where I am, it's got to be applicable to your 18 to 22-year-old who can internalize it and adapt it to use it. So if I can, coming from that same standpoint, if I can use it and function with it as it relates to me, now I can apply it to everything else.
So I actually, I'll just put the link in the chat if you want to check it out, because I actually started, I haven't quite finished it yet, but I started a personal development plan track on my tool. So it's got 2 or 3 tracks, right? It's got I'm starting up a new business from scratch. I've got an existing business, but I need a strategy, or I've got a strategy, I just need execution support. And then there's a personal development plan track as well, which, as I say, the last one is not fully developed, but the beginnings of it are there.
So next week, Wednesday, I leave to go to Puerto Rico to present a research paper where I am presenting this marketing plan as a change to the way marketing is, principles of marketing are taught. I wrote the proposal, and this organization said, we'd like you to come and present it. Hopefully it'll get published and get some traction out of it. But I want to evolve it to a standpoint of, now that you've developed a personal marketing plan, how do I apply that in a strategy to execute and move forward with? So there may be some synergy there. Chris, I want to share something with you that may help you. I'm going to share a link, and this may assist with the personal component. Let me just find it here real quick. So a couple of years ago, I started working with this lady in South Africa, and she developed this process called for genetic brain profiling. And Annette developed a 70-question assessment that people can take on their phones. They answer the questions, and it tells us their profile. Based on the profile, we can guide them as to, here's the kind of job you should do, here's the kind of person you should seek in a mate, here's how you learn. Do you have a 10-year-old that's having educational problems? Here's why, and let's put interventions in place to help them perform better. So I've used it in the sports world. We've also used it in the academic world and parenting and that kind of stuff. So where we've used it in the business world is getting a C-suite to all take the profile. And then determine, based on who you have currently working for you, you're missing this one component of leadership that is required to make your company work properly. You may have 3 A-type marketing people that are out there gung-ho because you developed the company and you brought in 1 or 2 more, but you're missing a strategy person, or you're missing a executive officer that can keep you all in the same boat. And you're all going off in different directions. So sitting down with a group and saying, here is who you are and how you function and how you interact with each other. And then being able to take that to the level of, now you need to go and recruit this personality, this profile. And this profile is going to look like this. So when they have a recruit, they can run them through the profile, and if that recruit meets that profile, yes, we want to talk to you. But if you don't, doesn't matter what you say, you'll never be this. So there's no point in talking to you.
Are you familiar with DISC? D-I-S-C?
Yeah. DISC comes in at a very high level.
Yeah.
But this goes down to, it profiles your brain hemisphere, ear, eye, hand, and foot, which is dominant, left or right. Those dominants are genetically determined 7 days after conception.
Right.
So you can't fake them. They are what they are. And DISC is more a personality. This is a genetic blueprint. This is who you are. So, for example, one of the big issues in education today, for the young kids, is people say these kids have ADHD.
Yeah.
That's an overused diagnosis given out by a education system that is driven to conformity. I have 28 students in my class. There's 2 disruptive students because they are causing the problem. They must be medicated to put them into conformation. Yeah. The problem is I don't teach the way they learn.
Yeah.
And no amount of forcing them is going to make them learn the way I teach. Yeah. So I need to move them to a teacher that teaches the way they learn. So I've got a study that I'm starting in August with a local school district for a group of 10-year-olds, where we're going to simply do the assessment of, are the teachers left or right brain, and are the students left or right brain? Mm-hmm. And after one semester, start in August, the end of November, what have been the referral for discipline or problematic areas? And then let's rearrange some of the students and move them to where they should be, in our opinion, and see if the number of referral changes.
Right.
So if we can reduce the number of disciplinary issues in the classroom by simply putting left brain kids with left brain teachers, will the rest of this process hold true? If we understand the kid more fully, can the teachers be more effective?
How do you double blind
those? So I fall back on Annette. She's double PhD, curriculum design and industrial psychology. She's been doing it for 40 years. She's done individual consulting, and she consults for the South African government in all sorts of areas. And she has done pretty much every kind of verification process to it. Mm-hmm. The problem we're facing here in the US is implementing this. We get the question, but that's from South Africa. So how do we know it works in the real world? South Africa's back in Africa. It's, primitive. So we're running a validation study at the moment with a university here, where at one university, we took a group of girl soccer players, mm-hmm. and we profiled them on the survey. And then we went and did the physical validation. Let me see how you write. Let me verify, are you actually right-handed or are you actually left-handed? Once we did all of that, how accurate was the online survey? Mm-hmm. In South Africa, it's at 98% accuracy. Mm-hmm. The first round in the US was 94%. And the variation, we think, is terminology. Right. Words that are being used. So we made some tweaks and we ran it with another body. Same girls, soccer at a university. Yeah. And with those tweaks, we got it to 96.8.
Right.
We've made some other tweaks, and we're running it with another body of girls at another university. And we're hoping this one is going to get us. Annette says she'll be happy with anything over 97. We're pretty close. If we can get it over 97, they're pretty accurate. We know that you are definitely this profile. How do you double blind it? Unfortunately, it's making sure in the assessment that the person actually answers the question correctly.
Yeah, but you're gonna move these people around, and then you're gonna see, does their behavior change, right? Their behavior will change because you moved them, not because your methodology works. Well, sorry,
Well,
will change because you moved them, whether your
okay.
methodology works or not.
So our plan is there's 6 classes and 6 teachers.
Yeah.
We're going to run it on all of them. 3 of the classes will be moved around and the other 3 will remain the same.
Right.
If these ones continue to get the same referral and these ones changed, then we can attribute that the change may have come from this. So that's the only way we can check it, give it a constant.
I would say that half the kids that you change need to be randomly selected and randomly changed in order to do a proper blind, right? So
even some that don't need to be changed.
Some that don't need to be changed, you need to change, and some and you need to change them randomly as well, right? Yeah.
See if they. So if we had three groups, 2 classes remain constant, 2 classes we change based on our perception, and 2 classes we do a random switch to see if there's a change.
Because if the kids who didn't need to change but are changed, if their performance doesn't deteriorate, then all that you proved is changing things causes people to behave better. Which I mean, I'm sure the Hawthorne experiments, right?
Right.
Right. So you change things, people perform better.
But for how long will they perform better?
Well, that's another issue. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, that's a good point. So when we make the change for that group, we need to make sure that we. Let me talk to the other researcher here in town and see if we can expand the group and get as 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, so we have a lot more students, so we can get a bigger group and do remain constant our perception of change and the random change, and see and also track what kind of change happened. All right, that's a good point.
Yeah, I think you need to do that. Otherwise, you're just measuring change versus non-change, not what the change was.
Yeah. So my wife is doing doctoral research for her dissertation in, can this process be adapted to adolescents if we understand what their profile is?
Right.
Can we then predict that if we know that this 10-year-old is this profile, does that mean we know that that profile has a high tendency of truancy in their early teens?
Mm-hmm.
What interventions can we put in place to basically prevent truancy? Keep your kid busy and all those things. So there's no unfortunate situation of, well, we made these changes and the kid wasn't truant. Well, that's a good thing, but we can't say that there would have been, but there's a high tendency. Yeah. So looking at, she's got 30 people that were involved in the juvenile justice system as a teenager. And she's interviewed them and profiled them and found out what profiles they have and what involvement they had. And then she's taking those and saying, okay, now Annette has done this multiple times over there and has said, this profile is going to do this. And that's based on, she's got 80 to 100,000 clients that she's worked with over the last 40 years. So she knows the tendencies are pretty accurate, but putting it into the US terminology, I see it as a tremendous business opportunity. I was just reading one of the posts on the founder on 12 Ronnies today about taking an idea and if you can make it profitable. I think I can make it profitable. I just don't think I want to take the time to make it profitable. Is it something I want to invest my time in? And maybe it's something Angie does, but I don't know if it's me. Chris, I appreciate your time. I've got another Zoom in 7 minutes and I need to go and drink something. Otherwise my throat is going to kill me. I've been sick for 2 days, so I've been, I'm just first day of recovery.
Okay, good. Well, good luck with that.
I'm going to get some notes out of this recording, and then hopefully we can take the discussion further. And I really like, I copied your link, so it's open. I'll go and have a look at that. See if that that process works. If there's anything I can do to assist you, just reach out. Unfortunately, your Thursday morning doesn't work for me because I have a class at 8 o'clock my time at the same time. So, but at the end of April, from April through to the end of August, I don't have any school, so I'll be able to attend those. I look forward to it.
Excellent. I look forward to seeing you there.
Thanks, Chris. I'll talk